Hello, and welcome to another Behind the Poem story. First of all, let me apologize. This is the first week I haven't managed to get it done on a Saturday, but I had a rather crippling headache yesterday that made it so that I could not make my video yesterday. So I hope that you'll forgive me for this being a day late. But ironically, the poem that I had chosen to do for this week, that I meant to do yesterday, is called Voiceless. So it feels a little bit apropos that I was voiceless yesterday when I intended to make my Behind the Poem story. So now that I have apologized to my faithful watchers, I'd like to talk to you about the poem Voiceless. I agonized a lot over whether to do part-time prison first and then do Voiceless, because that was the chronological order in which these poems were written. Part-time prison was written as a student. Voiceless was written after I became a teacher. But I decided that given the circumstances of not feeling very well yesterday and the circumstances of being on a school trip with lots and lots of teenagers who were having some difficulty listening, it might be better if I talked to you about Voiceless today, because Voiceless was written around the idea of speaking and not necessarily being heard in the way that you want to be. So there are multiple layers of irony of choosing Voiceless, one of which is because I often feel like I ramble or repeat myself in these videos, and almost without fail, I ask close friends of mine to watch the video as soon as I put it out, and I quite often am self-critical about whether or not I have been rambling or I have been repeating myself so much that the meaning of the story behind the poem gets lost. And as so happens with many of us who are empathic or like to hear other people's opinions, or who count on other people's opinions because we don't trust our own opinion of what we have accomplished or what we've done or how we've completed something, especially creative, I often feel like some of these videos or some of the poems are not quite what I want them to be, or not quite what I need them to be. As a writer, as a communicator, I need to express myself. It's how I present my identity to the world. It's how I form my identity for myself when I reflect on who I am and how I define myself. Expressing myself in words is how I do it. And without good words, without good expression, or expression that I feel does actually do the job it's set out to do, without those things, I have to keep going. I have to keep trying. I have to keep rambling and repeating myself until I feel like I have actually gotten across not just the meaning of the words that are coming out of my mouth, but the emotional core of what I'm trying to communicate. And that I need the other person listening to absolutely 100%, I have to know that they understand, which means that especially within arguments, when I'm arguing or debating or discussing something that's going on in my head, in my heart, in my life, when I am having those discussions, I don't necessarily need the person listening to me to agree with me or to think that I'm right, although I will admit to a sense of stubbornness that and the unbelievable level of stubbornness and need to be correct or need to be convinced that I'm not correct. I don't actually need that to complete an argument or to finish an argument or to stop having a discussion or argument with someone. What I do need when I have a debate, a discussion, an argument, whatever you want to call it, what I do need is to know in and of myself, not just being told by the other person that they understand, but I need to know that they understand not just the meaning of the words, but also the emotional core of it. I need to know that they feel how I feel, or at least comprehend how I feel when I'm trying to express myself. Because if they don't do that, if they don't feel what I feel or understand what I feel, even without agreeing with it or thinking that it's correct, then at least they are conscious of me and recognizing the validity of my existence or feelings, even if they don't agree with them. And so that is why so many of these videos ramble a little bit, because I'm not in conversation, but I feel like I have to make sure that I've expressed what I'm trying to express, that what I'm trying to express is valid and heard, because these poems are so much a part of me. These poems are so personal and so kind of vulnerable and exposing of me. And Voiceless is one of the most, I would say, of the recent poems that was kind of raw when I wrote it. It's kind of on multiple levels in dealing with the conversations and debates, arguments and things like that. People who are somewhat introverted, which I'm clearly not, but also slightly empathic, which I feel like I am. People who are either introverted or have a kind of sense of empathy often can't break into a conversation in a group, or feel like it's not their right to break into the conversation in a group. Like, they don't interrupt people. They try very much to wait for the turn taking. They try very much to wait for a lull in the conversation to break in what they have to say, because for us, for people who are empathic or introverted, it's important that we hear other people, because for us that's the most important thing, to be heard. Unfortunately, because we don't kind of actively force our way into the conversation or actively insist that we get our turn, sometimes what we have to say will no longer be relevant by the time we do get into the conversation, or by the time we do feel the need to be heard. And so quite often, when we do finally get our turn, or feel like it's okay to take our turn, what we have to say or what we need to talk about has already been long past in the conversation. And so we become voiceless, in the sense that we want to pour our heart out and we want to communicate those emotions and feelings and ideas regardless of the topic. But by the time we get round to our turn, or feeling capable of taking our turn, we're not able to do so, or it's no longer relevant, so we just don't. This particular poem I wrote after becoming a teacher, because there is nothing more important to me or closer to my identity than what I do. I love my job. I love my job so much, and have put aside many other things and sacrificed many other things to be able to do my job, because I love my job, and my job is so important. Both of my parents are teachers. My sister's a teacher. I love teaching. I love teaching very, very much. I think it is so important that we have good teachers who actually care about their subject, who actually care whether or not their subject is communicated to their students, and who care about how teaching their subject can allow them to help students who would otherwise not have any outlet. If I reach one student in a class of 30, if I reach one student in all of my students, in all of my classes of 150 total, that's a victory. If I make space for one person to feel better about themselves, or express themselves better, or understand English literature better, that is a victory for me, and I love it. And there's nothing better than feeling it when it happens. Now I'm in an environment where I can actually do my job, and I feel like those efforts are valued by my colleagues, are valued by the people above me within my school, and once or twice have been particularly valued by my students, who are of course the most important people to feel like I'm reaching. But it has not always been so, and it's not always so every day. Sometimes there is resistance, and most of that resistance has nothing to do with me or how my student feels about me. Most of that resistance is because the student doesn't feel they're good at it, or because the student doesn't believe in themselves the same way that I do. And I find it very, very frustrating, because there is nothing I would rather do. And knowing that children are children does not always help the emotional cost of feeling like I'm failing them. I know that teenagers are teenagers, and sometimes they're going to resist doing what you're asking them to do, because they don't have the energy, or because they don't have the interest, or because they don't want to. But that doesn't mean that I can stop trying, that I can stop repeating myself and rambling on and on until I get through whatever is resisting. And there is nothing that makes me more frustrated or angry than seeing someone's potential and knowing that their voice matters and that I desperately want to help them be able to use that voice and not be able to. Whether because they're resisting me or they're having a bad day or they're ignoring me or they don't like the subject or they have a personality conflict with me. As a person, since teaching and being able to do what I do effectively is so much a part of who I am, there are days when I can't keep up that professional armor that most teachers do. And, we are people and we do value what we do if we're a good teacher anyway. And so it is heartbreaking to feel that kind of rejection from our students sometimes and make us feel like we're pouring out our hearts into our work. We're pouring out our hearts into trying to help them express themselves and be the very best that they can be in our subjects. And then to kind of see that almost get thrown away or thrown back in our face or rejected by the student because they're not emotionally ready or intellectually ready or mature enough to know that we are really trying to help them, that it means something to us to help them, that it matters to us to be able to help them. And it's something that is the core of Voiceless for me, of pouring out into my voice, into my words in front of my classroom, and sometimes having it fall on deaf ears or having them hear me but not really listen. And so Voiceless was an expression of that frustration. But Voiceless is also a call out for understanding of those students. Please hear me. Please listen. I do mean it when I say that I want to help you. I do mean it when I say that I believe in you. I'm not just saying it because I'm doing my job. I'm not just saying it because I get paid to say it. I really do believe that. I really do think that. Or I wouldn't put so much energy into it, so much feeling into it. So good teachers never give up on trying to be heard, on trying to get our voice to connect with the students so that they can do what they need to do. Good teachers never are always trying, and we always try to find our voice every day. If you have friends that are trying to have their voice heard but are always putting themselves aside, if you have a student that you feel or a child or a teenager that you feel would benefit from seeing the human side of a teacher, feel free to show them this video so that they know that this is how some of their teachers feel and that we need to be heard too. And we want to listen and we want to hear and have that conversation and express and be expressed at so that we can truly understand each other. So I encourage everybody to find their voice, because every single voice matters. Everyone has something of value to contribute to the people around them, even if it's silence while they listen to someone else being upset. Regardless of what you contribute with your voice, or whether one person agrees with you or 50 people agree with you, use that voice, because the only time we all lose is when we stop trying to communicate. So, thank you very much for listening. This has been the story behind the poem Voiceless. I hope to do the story behind the student version of it when I wrote as a teenager for next week, called Part-Time Prison. But until then, use your voices, and I will talk to you later. Bye.